we're going to get started as soon as Andrew's come back. He's going to be doing the presentation. Now, Andrew's one of my best friends, and he has done basically all of the best strategies. So you are going to learn from someone who has lived through it and can articulate it very well for you. So thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Bryce.
I also want to give your Bright a huge shout out. We actually have some filmers from the Red Deer Chamber of Commerce. So for those that don't know, Bryce has actually been nominated as Emerging Business of the Year for Central Alberta Real Estate Investor Network, which you are all now a part of. So congratulations, you are Emerging Business of the Year. So, but just to put it into perspective, last week we did an event and there was about 85 or so people that were there at our North ATB location. In this past year, we've done over 75 million that we can actually track within the Central Alberta Real Estate Investor Network, which is quite impressive. I don't know very many businesses within Red Deer that are doing 75 million. But for all those that have attended an event in the past, would you stand up for one moment? Okay. So that's about half the room here. So for all of those that are currently standing, have you been impacted in a positive way by these events?
Yes.
For sure.
Do you feel like you've probably given back in some way to the economy within Red Deer in the past year from these events?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So I think that goes without saying for the chamber, when they're looking at this demographic, for all those that have stood up, not a single person has stepped down from this. So congratulations, Bryce, for doing such a great job. Yeah, I'm excited for October when that finally comes out. But like Bryce said, my name's Andrew Rocha, and I am very excited to talk to you about how to retire a spouse. When Bryce started asking me a few questions, he basically all told me that I was going to be doing this presentation. I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I've always toyed with this idea of the currency of happiness. People talk about that you can't buy happiness, which is true to an extent. But as we all know, there's multiple different currencies in life. It doesn't have to be the financial one, which is hiding in the vault behind me. It could also be the transactions that we do throughout life. And how does that facilitate that happiness in one's life? So why you shouldn't listen to me. I dress up as a horrible cowboy. I'm from Ontario, so I do not represent Alberta very well with my mock of a cowboy. But I used to be over $60,000 in debt. It was very crippling. It was not very fun, and it was not a great thing when I got married to introduce to my wife, hey, by the way, I come with all this debt. My mother-in-law is also in the audience, so it could be interesting, the dynamic here as I talk about my relationship. My wife also almost left me at one point. I was not a great human being at a certain point in my life. I had so much debt, and it was such a stressor in my life. You look at the average Canadian, and they're spending $1.79 for every single dollar that they earn, meaning they're constantly going backwards. The number one cause of divorce in Canada is finances. And so it was no wonder if I'm bringing $60,000 of debt into a relationship, things might be a bit hard. I worked in a warehouse, so I had a really great job. I actually worked with Garth for quite a while and was doing very well. I switched to a different company. Shortly after we got back from our honeymoon, I got laid off, which was not very fun. So then I took a job at a warehouse because the company was going under, but I was previously working for. And lastly, I couldn't afford steel-toe boots. We could not pay for anything at that point. I went to Value Village. I bought a pair of steel-toe boots that were a size too small for me, and my toe was numb every single day. I think my wife was ready to chop my toe off because of how much I complained about it. So why you should listen to me. Now you know all the reasons why you should leave. If you want to leave, the door is there. Hopefully you stay, because there's a few things. We paid off that $60,000 of debt in 7 months, which I know sounds a bit absurd. We'll talk a little bit about how we actually did that because it was a fun but tough process. Finances are no longer a fight in our marriage. There's other fights, like if I put my laundry away or whatnot, but finances are no longer a fight, which is great. That's a huge plus. I worked in the financial services industry for the past 7 years. So I've been here with ATB all those 7 years, and it's been incredible. Been able to see lots of people's finances impacted. And we currently own 10 doors. So that's been a huge fun milestone for us. And lastly, I could buy shoes that fit. That has been probably the biggest win of it all. I've kept my toes, so thank goodness for that.
Start up.
So start with why. So for those that are trying to figure out what that's a video of, this was in 2023. I had the opportunity to retire my wife. And that was a goal of mine for a very long time. But while we were dating, that was something that Emily had always talked about, is that she wanted to be 3 by 23 years old, not have to work at all. She turned 23 and that goal didn't happen. And it actually tore me up inside. It was something that I was really hopeful that we would be able to accomplish together. So then I secretly set a new goal that we're going to change the 23 and add 20 in front of it. So 2023. And that was what we were able to do. So I was actually able to retire my wife at the age of 30 years old. And doing a lot of the tactics that we're going to talk about today. But that is my why. And I think that for any of you that are in this room, you probably saw the catchphrase, retire your spouse. That's great, but that may not be your why. And so it's important to figure out what actually inspires you, what actually motivates you and pushes you forward, and hold on to that vision. So with that said, if you want to scan this QR code, you're going to get free access to a few different things. How to create a year in review. So you actually figure out how do you actually look at your year and analyze what has that looked like for you. How to build your vision. So like I talked about, my wife and I, we had a clear, distinct vision that we wanted to build upon and make sure that we'd set things forward. You're going to learn about the 6 F's of life. It is not the F that you're thinking about, so don't worry. It's safe to scan. There's also the great 8 questions. So 8 questions that can help frame your 5-year vision. And then lastly, smarter goals. You've probably heard of SMART goals. We're going to get a little smarter on this. So if you scan that QR code, you'll get access to that. It's probably going to end up in your junk folder when you get the email. So check your spam folder, reply, hey, Andrew, you wear nice shoes or whatever you want. And then it'll make sure any emails in the future won't go to your junk folder. Now, there's 3 ways to get out of debt. So we had $60,000 of debt. And so we read every single book, listened to every single podcast, watched every single video that we could to figure out how to get out of debt. So the first one is sell. You can find things to sell. We walked through our house and sold pretty much everything and anything. We didn't have living room furniture. We didn't have a TV. We downsized to only having 2 plates. Then we went out in the community and we're like, what else can we sell? There's people that are throwing stuff out. We would go and find golf clubs that are on someone's driveway for kick it to the curb, turn around, sell that for a few $100s. You're probably looking around the office here and like, there's a lot of nice things I could sell. Please don't take those. That is theft and we don't want that. So the next thing is earn more. So there's a few different ways that you can earn more. You can obviously ask for a raise. The other thing that we did is we just did tons of side hustles whenever we could. So I actually was working at the bank one day, talking to someone about their finances, got off, dressed like this, got in my car and started delivering for Skip the Dishes. My very first delivery was a person I just helped with their finances and they're looking for. It's a bit uncomfortable, but in that season, we just didn't care because we wanted to get out of debt, whatever it took. And the last thing is spend less. There's probably tons of different ways that you can cut down on your expenses. We can take that off later and I can show you all the different things that we've done of how we can spend less. And that really helped us to get out of debt. So now we talk about 7 baby steps. My good friend, Dave Ramsey, he will love half of what I'm going to say, and he's going to laugh and enjoy it. And then the other half, he's probably going to cry at what I'm going to say. So there's a fine balance there. But if you've never, there's seats right here. Don't worry, I don't spit too much. So the 7 baby steps with Dave Ramsey. The first one is save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Now, this might seem like, why am I doing this? It's a psychology thing. You want that first win, and you can probably save $1,000 within a week's time frame. I'll actually give you a challenge that if you're thinking that you can't, try it. The worst case scenario is you have extra money. The best case scenario is you have more than $1,000 in an emergency fund. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to pay off all your debt using the debt snowball technique. So again, if you don't know what that is, we can talk about that later. But I would love to teach you how to actually pay off debt in the most effective way possible. So that way you can start buying real estate and actually make an impact to your life. And then from there, you're going to start saving an emergency fund. So if anything were to happen, like for myself, when the company said, hey, we can no longer pay you, we should have had an emergency fund. We didn't, and I just felt in a constant state of emergency, which was not good. I don't want you to feel that. Then you're going to want to invest 15%, save for your children's college fund, and pay off your home early, and build wealth and give. Now that's Dave Ramsey's steps. And Dave Ramsey's steps work for the majority of North Americans. I'd say that 95% of North Americans, this is exactly the formula that you want to use. However, I'm assuming that you're in this room, you're probably not the majority of North Americans. You probably saw what Bryce said about retiring your wife or spouse early, and you got really excited of how can this actually happen. And this is great, and it can get you to that point. It's probably going to take a lot longer, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a way to do it that can be a bit faster, and I think personally a bit more effective. So this was house A. You can see this little house here in Red Deer. We bought this in 2019, so only 6 years ago, and we bought it for $325,000. We lived upstairs and rented out the downstairs. We saved $200 a month compared to renting. So our rent at that time was around $850. We were actually, our expenses all in after insurance, utilities, everything was $650. So we were saving money by choosing not to be renters anymore and actually own our first property. Today, the upstairs rents for $1,900, downstairs rents for $1,600. The expenses are $2,266, and the cash flow is $1,234 every month. Now, that is including an emergency fund. That's including money set aside for if anything breaks. All of those things and expenses, they're everything. The cash flow is what we actually can take and we can spend, or we can invest, or we can give, or we can do whatever we'd like with that money, because everything else is already covered in those expenses, which works out really nice. So in house number B, today's value of that house is approximately $400,000. So if we were to sell it, we'd probably make, I'm guessing closer to $425,000. House number B. So this is the house that we currently live in. Please don't Google search us. So that would be a bit creepy, but we live in house number B. We bought that in 2020 for $445,000. And at the time I wrestled with that. I'm like, is this good? Is this not? We currently live upstairs. We rent out the downstairs. The downstairs rents for $1,675. The expenses for that are $2,850. And so we're cash flowing negative, but we're still living upstairs. So imagine for yourself, if you live in a 2-story house that backs onto a park, that has room for all your kids, you have it's a great house where we can invite people over, be a blessing to the community, and you're only paying $1,100. That is incredible. And so I think that has a potential to really change people's lives. Even when I talked about if you can minimize the amount that you're spending in rent versus owning by $200, for a lot of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, that could change everything for them. And the nice thing is the house prices have continued to go up, so it's worth over $600,000 now. Then we look at the Lakeshore condo. So this was a house looking over this beautiful lake. Bryce and I actually went to go look at a unit that was right underneath it. We stood outside talking and we looked up and we saw for sale by owner sign. And Bryce immediately calls and he's like, hey, I have an offer for you. He met with the guy and then hid it in the guy's bathroom, called me. He's like, hey, I think I know how we can buy this house. Can we do this amount? Yes, you can do that amount, Bryce. Okay, I'll call you back soon. And then pretended to keep going to the bathroom. So I don't know what the guy thought about what Bryce was, but it was great. It worked out really well for us. So we bought that house in 2022 for $145,000. We put $10,000 into it. So we tried to be really scrappy. We did almost all of the work ourselves. And instead of putting it as a house, we created it as a business. So we turned it into an Airbnb and we put together the projections of how that business would be operated. We had a guide that my wife designed and worked through the new owner in detail of this is how you're going to run your business. It's not a house, it's a business that you're buying. And so we sold that property for $250,000, and the profit on that was $95,000. So it was a great day. This guy really wants to come in. House number C, another house that we bought in 2023 for $279,000. We put $25,000 into this, just putting a bit of work that needed to be done. The previous owner, it was an estate sale, and there was just not ideal things going on in the house, so it needed some work to get it back to where it needed to be. We then refinanced it for $355,000. So you can see the numbers there. There's obviously a positive gain. Right now, the upstairs rents for $2,200, downstairs for $1,550. The expenses are just over $2,700, and it's cash flowing just over $1,000. The other fun thing is we actually refinanced it again for $389,000 because we showed how much the rents had been going up. And so again, the bank looked at this. This is a solid business. It isn't just a house. They're strategically operating this to figure out how can we pull the max amount of value while still helping people. because the people that are there, they love this house. They were people that they couldn't find anywhere else to live, and we were able to work with them, create a solid plan, and make sure that it fit within their budget. So we're able to serve both needs, which is excellent. Should we keep going on houses? Okay, let's go to the green flip. So me and my friend, you can't see this, this building is really green now. If you drive past it in Red Deer, you will know which house it is because it's very green. We bought this in 2024 for $269,000. We put $59,000 into it. Look at that beautiful kitchen. And then we turned around and sold it for $379,000. So then we had a profit of $51,000. Now that was split between the two of us, but we also had equal risk in that. We had equal exposure, and so it worked out very well on that one as well. House number D, we actually just bought this year for $345,000. We put $30,000 into it. Again, it was a bit of a hoarder situation. So we went and cleaned out the full basement. We redid a bunch of stuff. The electrical needed to be done, some of the plumbing to bring it up to where it should be today. We were able to refinance this afterwards for $398,000. Upstairs, again, $1,900. Downstairs, $1,500. The expenses are $3,000 and the cash flow is $354 per month. So less than the other ones, but still, I'm laughing because all of my expenses there, like I said, I have an emergency fund set aside. I have things if they break down set aside. So 354 is truly going into our pockets. It's not going anywhere else. Now, house E and F. It sounds weird that I say E and F. We actually ended up buying two houses on the same day, which was kind of fun. So this is one of those houses. So we bought this, and again, this past year, actually earlier this month, for $328,000. So appraised at $350,000, and the comparable sale on the same street was $379,000. So we bought it at quite a large discount, which was excellent. It's currently renting for just under $2,500. The expenses are $2,000, and so we're cash flowing $441 per month, and that's times two because it's the exact same unit somewhere else just down the block. So it works out well because if I need to go do anything on the houses, I knock on one door and then walk to the next one and knock on that door. Or I can even bike, which I usually do.
Good.
So total, just a bit of a recap because I know I went fast. In the past 6 years, we've done 2 flips. We own currently 10 doors and we're cash flowing just over $5,000 a month.
Ooh.
Now, when you look at that, that might seem a bit daunting. Okay, what does that actually look like? Because what's the actual value of those houses if we were to sell them today is just over $2.4 million. Now the debt, that's the part that scares a lot of people, is 1.7. But if you look at these numbers, the amount of equity that we have on it to date is $750,000. So if anything were to go wrong, we would sell them today and be able to pull out that equity immediately. Now, I don't want to do that because our ideal is that we would continue having this cash flow because that's the whole important part of retiring your spouse. You probably need an income stream to help supplement that.
Yeah.
So again, show that video again because that was one of the most impactful days for me. My wife had no clue what we were going to do. I actually rented a limo and we showed up because she was working from home at that point. We showed up with the kids, mother-in-law, father-in-law, her parents, and had this great celebration. We drove to the ATV on the north end. We had friends, family with banners. I had this sledgehammer that wrote freedom on the side of it and then the date for her retirement, per se. But that was something that was so important to me. When we got married, one of my vows was we are on this pursuit of excellence. We're on the pursuit of happiness. Like you talked about the currency of happiness, it's transactional, but the pursuit of excellence. How can we achieve excellence together? And knowing that we'll never fully hit it, but we're on that pursuit of it. And one of the things in the vows was I promised to make her dreams a reality. And her dream was to retire. And so that was honestly one of the most fulfilling days of my life, to see one of her biggest dreams of being a stay-at-home mom, be with the kids, raise them incredibly well, and to know that she has that peace was incredible. And so for a lot of you that are here, I'm assuming you probably have a similar vision, a similar why. Like I said, it might not be the same, but I would really encourage you to dig into it of what is that vision, what inspires you? Because you can have a bad day in real estate. You can have horrible tenants. You can have weird situations come up, and they do come up. The numbers at that point don't really matter. Yes, they do. But honestly, what keeps encouraging me is my why. My why is our family, our growing family, I want to ensure that I set up a great legacy for them and that I can continue building upon what we've built on. So at the beginning of the presentation, I said, if you want to scan that QR code, you get a framework for how exactly I created that vision. If you haven't scanned it, it's going to be up there. But I want to encourage you to sit down with your spouse and actually build out what your future could look like. There's a lot of wisdom in this room. Everything that I just talked about, Bryce and Penny were the ones to share that wisdom with me. I remember when I was in Bible college, this would have been over a decade ago, Penny had invited us to her house, and there was a few of us, and there was 4 guys, and we were planning on renting a house. And afterwards, I walked out. I'm like, there's no way I'm renting a house. I'm buying a house. And I just knew at that moment, I wasn't ready yet, but the seed was planted for what was to come. And when I bought that first house, they were in my corner, able to help with all those decisions, whatnot, and being able to have the knowledge of the finances and talk to people within the bank that were able to help me strategically plan that. Worked out really well. So that is my presentation. The QR code will stay up there, but we're going to turn it over if there's any questions. So I'll pass the microphone over to Bryce.
Oh, good. So, the one property he bought it for $279,000, put $25,000 into it, and then it appraised for $355,000. He refinanced almost all of his down payment out, but then when he refinanced it again for $389,000, he pulled all of his initial down payment out, and he got a tax-free check for $30,000, which he took that, and then he didn't go buy a car with it, didn't go vacation with it. He took it and he bought another rental property and did the BRRRR strategy on it. So out of all the strategies that you've done, we'll take questions, but out of all the strategies you've done, what do you think is the best strategy?
Yes. So if I were to restart all over again, what I likely would do is I would buy the first house, like legally suited, but live in the basement because you'll get more for the upstairs. I would do that 4 times because you only have to put 5% down on doing that. So I would go buy a house, save up, next year buy another house, live in the basement, and be collecting the rent and do that 4 times. But what I like is what you said is the BRRRR strategy of buying houses that they aren't in complete disarray, but there's things that need to be done to them, and other people are looking at them like, it's probably not the house for us. It's not our dream house. That's okay. I can turn a dream into reality. So I know how to do that. So I'll buy something that has some things that need to be worked on, go do that work, and then refinance it at the bank because they will gladly give over that money for the equity that you've increased in the appraisal of the house. And that is all tax-free. So you just, like you said, a $30,000 check, tax-free. I don't have to pay any taxes on this. And then I can go and reinvest that in for real estate.
Yeah, so buying one, so you move into the one, put 5% down, move to the next, 5% down. The bank always cares about your why. Why are you moving? And so if you pigeonhole yourself where you live in the basement first, you buy it for 5% down. The bank asks, why are you moving? Well, I'd like to live upstairs. Why don't you kick out the tenants upstairs and move up there? Well, I've got great tenants in there in the lease. Oh, okay, that makes sense. And so they move to the second one, you live upstairs. And the third time, they're like, why are you moving? Well, I want one with a garage. Oh, that makes sense. We live in Canada. And then the fourth time, why are you moving? Well, I would like a nicer house. I just got married, she'd like a nicer house. Okay, that makes sense. And then the fifth one, because you could have 5 houses for 5% down. The fifth one, you buy a single family house, and the 4 pay for you to live in the fifth one for study. So we'll take a question from the audience. So just raise your hand and I'll pass you the microphone. Question.
Actually, if you have grown kids, you could buy a house for your grown kid for 5% down. So you could get your kids to keep moving if you want. As we're older. Does your wife take care of the rentals? Does she still manage the funds, manage getting people to go in there and do repairs? Or do you do that all after your day job?
Yeah, that's a great question. With moving your kids in, I tried moving one of my kids into the house and it didn't work out very well. They're too young. But I'm doing the majority of it. Just because I have the passion for it. Like I'm the one that's usually listening to the books, audiobooks, podcasts, all that sort of stuff. Like I'm really passionate about it. And so it's just something that excites me. She's fully capable of doing that sort of stuff, but it does not excite her to the same level. So we just have that agreement.
Yes. This is a dangerous snake.
No. It's an easy one. Can you talk about how capital gains does or doesn't affect any of this?
Yes. Good question.
That's a great question. So with the capital gains, so you take a look at the condo that we did. So there was $95,000 of profit. So we set that money aside. We knew that there was going to be capital gains on it. And so when it came time for taxes, we spoke to our financial advisor as well as our accountant to figure out how much are we actually going to be paying in taxes. And we dumped a lot of that into our RSP so it offset our taxes. So that was really advantageous. We kept it in a tax-free savers account and we left it in there until it was time for tax season, moved into RSP when we knew exactly, and then our tax bill was zero. So it worked out well because we had enough for it in there, as well as we tithe. And we have lots of things that are expenditures in our rentals that we can write off. Like you can write off interest rate, you can write off utilities, all of these things that add up quite a lot that you can write off.
If you do flips under a company, then it's wages and not capital gains. Like a numbered company. Yeah. Then it's wages, or you can just pull out of your stocks like most of it. It's a numbered company.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you. I'll sit down because I've got the camera right behind me. So I see that you had plans to live in the basement or in the upstairs, and most of these units you had rented out as two separate units. Some of them are older buildings. Were they legal basement suites when you bought them, or did you modify them? In which case, how did you go about doing it?
Third question.
We have always bought legal suites. And the reason being is we know for taxes, it's better to have legal suites so that way there's less issues, as well as an eye at the bank. I get firsthand knowledge of that. It's better for qualifying power if it's legally suited versus not legally suited, because you can use that income. So we've always bought legally suited houses. Not saying that you can't convert something into legally suited. It just can be a bit more difficult, and the prices continue to increase all of that. So that's personally been our strategy, is buying legally suited houses that need some renovations, but not crazy amounts.
Third place that you can find out where you can make a legal suite? Like where would I find an information in order to see that?
On the City of Red Deer website, they have all the ceiling height requirements, soundproof barrier. They have all that on there.
Yep. We're going to have. Yeah.
Sure. Oh yeah, and there's an interactive map as well, because only a certain percentage of each subdivision can have suites in them. Riverside Meadows is full, West Park is full, and then up by the hospital is full. But everywhere else has room.
Good too.
I was just wondering, how do you get approved for all these mortgages? Like, is it easier because you work at the bank, or?
I just have a big staff. No, we try to be as strategic as possible with all of this. And so we use all of our income and claim it. Like, we don't hide anything from the government. So the government can, and we've been audited multiple times, but the government can look and see everything that's going on with our taxes and say, yep, this is forthright, like everything is there. And so in the eyes of the bank, it's the exact same situation. They're looking at that and they see, yes, everything is favorable. No, that's all right. Everything's favorable there. And that's a big part of why I talk about the debt part of things, of trying to remove as much consumer debt as possible. That's usually what is the hindrance for most people, is they have that consumer debt. And so when you look at what's called a TDSR, a total debt service ratio, the amount of debt that you're paying out versus the amount of income that's coming in, those are usually off. The bank ideally is looking for 42% of your income to be going towards debt. Ideally, they want lower than that. And so we have no consumer debt. The only debt that we have is mortgages. And because they're cash flowing like they are, the banks are very favorable with that. Yeah.
Very quick, I guess, two-part question. The homes are under personal name or court? And then because you didn't do the buy 14-month special CRA game, new place where they always 20% down, and obviously with ATB, it's easier than the big chunk bank.
Yep. Hope that was a two-winner.
Those all look good. Everything is in personal name. And it just worked better for us. Now, each situation's a little bit different, but for us, of where we're at, everything is in personal name. The lawyer that I typically use, he has over 100 doors and all of his are in his personal name. He doesn't do anything through a corporation. Now, he's much older, so I think the rules have changed over time on that. So that might look different now. Second question was 20% down. The houses that we've moved into, we've put 5% down. So that was the first two. Everything else has been 20% down. And then when it comes to the bank, I think it really depends on each situation. Like the bank is looking at the holistic picture. So we're looking at that debt. They're looking at your credit. They're looking at your income. They're looking at what field are you in that you're getting that income from. What's your experience level with rentals? Now that I have 6 years of experience under my belt in 10 doors, we're like, yeah, this is a bit of a no-brainer. We know that this situation isn't going to go bad. And if it does, it's not going to go horribly bad. So those things have really helped out quite a bit.
We'll take another department. They're whispering. I can tell the other questions.
Very hiding way in the back. I can't even see Andrew, but do you prefer to purchase newer homes than older homes, or is there a difference in your opinion for rentability, the price that you can collect for rent, that kind of thing? What's your preference?
Yeah, those are a great question.
So almost all of our houses have been older homes. They are probably 50s, 60s. The only ones that are newer are the one that we currently live in, as well as the last two that we purchased. They are both, those ones are 12 years old. I typically prefer older homes because you can utilize the BRRRR strategy of going in and renovating and doing some work and then pulling out that equity. Now, with the newer houses that we just bought, the reason being was my wife's like, we have so much on the go right now. Can we buy something easy? Which this is easy because they are just, everything is perfectly fine with them. There's not going to be any issues, as well as we were able to get it at the price for those houses. So that's why we moved forward with those. But in the most ideal world, I would probably buy older houses because you can increase the equity so much better.
What's your plan moving forward? Are you going to keep doing legally suited places? Are you going to move into commercial? Do you have a game plan, or are you just going to see how it goes?
Thank you. Our biggest goal was I wanted to get to 10 doors, and I also wanted to buy 2 houses in one day, which we were able to do just this past month. So that was a really cool goal to accomplish. I didn't think that would actually happen. And so right now we're in this bit of a crossroads of we've hit all of our goals that we wanted to. Like when I turned 30, I looked at this list that I had created 5 years ago. I'm like, I've hit every single goal. So then we created new ones for the age of 35. And then we sat down recently and we hit them again. And I'm only 32 now. So we need to figure out something else. So we're in the process of using this framework to figure out what our next goals are. So that's the biggest thing. When it comes to the personal side of things, I want to get jacked. No. It's kind of up in the air. I think the biggest thing right now is we are looking for our dream property. Like we have it, the vision of exactly what it looks like, where we want it to be, features in it. And so we're like, okay, we're on the trajectory for that. Do we continue going the rental side, or do we slow that down to focus on the dream of the house and knowing what that provide for our family? So we're in a bit of a limbo state right now.
Does anyone have one more question?
I have one that when you're doing a BRRRR model, how much sweat equity are you putting into each place? Or are you farming that out, or how much is on you typically per property?
That's a great question. So it has reduced quite a bit. Like that condo that I was talking about, my wife, Emily, she's awesome. It was the 3rd floor. She would go with 2 kids with a pack and play up the 3 flights of stairs because there was no elevator, put the kids for naps while she would go in work while I was at work. And then I'd get off work and come and do as much as possible. And we did that all in under a month. It was crazy. I got exhausted from that, and I don't want to continue doing that. I'm also not the handiest person. I should not be trusted with most things. So I do farm out a lot of that, but I get the help of friends. And that's the nice thing. Like through communities like this, you build those relationships and get those connections, and you're able to leverage those and figure out, okay, can you show me how to do this? And we'll work together and I'll still pay you, but I want to learn this skill set. So that's really helpful.
And I tell them the strategy that you use where you get 3 contractors and you put your favorite last. So Andrew will get 3 contractors. He'll put his favorite last. He'll bring the first contractor through. He'll be like, hey, here's everything that I would like to get done on the property. And by the way, I have another contractor coming to give me a quote. Yeah, that's fine. First contractor leaves. Second contractor comes, says the same thing. Yeah. So then after both contractors leave and send the quotes, a couple days later, he looks at the quotes and whichever one's cheaper, he goes back to the other guy, says, hey, would you be willing to beat this one? It's like, yeah, I'll beat it by a couple $100. Sure. He just keeps going back and forth until one of them drops out. And then he takes that quote, he goes to his favorite contractor, and he doesn't say, will you match this or will you beat it? He says, what do you think of this? The contractor will look at it and go, well, are we painting the ceilings because it's heavily smoked in? Well, yeah, I need to do that. Well, he doesn't have that in there. So sometimes contractors accidentally leave things out. Sometimes there's just so many things, it's hard to keep track of it. But Andrew, when he's doing renovations, probably does it for like 60% cheaper than I do. So I just hire the guy that you never have to worry about. Come back, it's like, hey, yeah, thanks for doing all the work. But he does that for everything. And because of that, he's a great person to do burrs, he thinks, because he really controls the cost.
Some people hate that. So, but to be honest, I do that with everything. Like insurance, I will do that with. Utility bills, I will do that with. I will try to negotiate everything as down as low as possible because, like, going back to paying off all that debt, that was one of the best strategies that we could to pay things down as quickly as possible. Is save the money, stop the bleed.
I do the same. I've got a question. Do you have any recommendations on how to find good renters? Like once you're...
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll put up the ad on Facebook. I like Facebook the most because then you can go and see their social media profile and you can see their pictures. You can see if they have a huge dog that might not be as favorable. You can see if they're partying, all those sort of things. And then I send them 5 questions. And I just keep it on my phone as a script. So I'll copy and paste this exact same message always. Thanks for inquiring. I've had a ton of interest, so trying to streamline things to make it easier for both of us. Question 1, do you or any of the others moving with you smoke? Do you have any pets? How many people will be living with you? What does everyone do for work? How come you're moving? And it's interesting, that last question, you'd be surprised how many people say I just got evicted. So immediately it brings them out of the running. But those 5 questions I found have been really what I need to know. And from there, I can wean it down. Tonight from 7:30 to 8:15, I actually have a showing at one of our places. So I do an open house style showing where I'll narrow it down to about 5 people. They'll all be there going through. And because they're overlapping with each other, it becomes a little bit competitive. They want this place. So then I tell them that whoever sends me all of their information, I'll contact the next day. So I'll do a landlord reference check as well as current employer check. I don't use the numbers they provide me. I Google the actual company's name because oftentimes they're providing a friend's phone number. And when I call, I ask, how do you know Bryce Gander? Oh, Bryce works perfect. I know that this is actually legitimate. I don't offer up information. I ask them information. Once you figure out who it's going to be, I message that person back saying, hey, I'd like to move forward with you. I'm going to send you the lease agreement. Once you've agreed to the lease agreement, send me the damage deposit and I'll let everyone else know that it's taken. Once they send me the damage deposit, then we set up a time to move in, sign the lease, do walkthrough inspection, pay first month's rent, and get keys. The keys are always the last piece because if their bank, like their e-transfer limit, all of a sudden is magically not working, they already have the keys at hand. So I hold on to the keys in my pocket until the very end when I know that the money's in my account.
Well, thank you all for coming. We'll stick around for a little bit. We got to be out at 6:30 when the bank locks up. But everyone give Andrew a round of applause. That was awesome.
So we've been doing these real estate investor meetups on a much larger scale, usually once every couple months. We're actually pivoting to doing this as a biweekly meetup where it provides opportunity for more conversation. So not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, same place, same time. And each time is going to be a bit different. We might be doing an interview. We might be showcasing a couple of deals. It might just be a time to network and build those relationships up. So I want to encourage you to come out on a biweekly basis every other Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30 and invite your friends.